Oh, well, guys, I just recorded this video, and I, of course, had my mic muted and didn't realize it. So I going to have to restart, but that's okay. I have good news and bad news and bad news and neutral news. And it's all kind of the same news. And there's a lot of fake news. I chased the Hammer thing a little more. Because I remember I said the search algorithm seemed like changing. They changed a little bit. Well, what that did is that opened up essentially the fact that Hammer has been being talked about since 2017, probably maybe before that. And the main culprit here is this Dennis Montgomery character, the guy who Thomas McInerney, the general, was talking about. So, just because one website craps on him doesn't mean that I take that as truth. And I did some reading, and the key is not to find what he's saying right now, because you can always come up with a plausible explanation for the facts as they are and weave your story into it. It's how historical fiction works. But what you can't do is suddenly backtrack and disown the things you've been saying before, the cases that have been brought before, especially when there's testimony and video and interviews and stuff like that, and then say, like, oh, you just weren't telling the truth then or something. Like, it's very strange. So the further back you trace it, the more you get stuff that's just completely incorrect. Now, here's the cruel thing that the media did, and I should say really the search engines and big tech did. And it's not just cruel, it's dishonest. It's counterintelligence, to say the least. This is a Daily Beast article from the 9th. Well, it was updated on the 9th. It was originally published on the 8th, right? And this is about when all that Hammer and Scorecard shit was dropping, right? While the Daily Beast is anything but solid and reliable news, and this article is slanted as hell, it does basically chronologize. It creates basically a chronology of kind of the stuff that this Dennis Montgomery character has been involved with. Self-proclaimed whistleblower. And I had to go look. I'm like, okay, so this guy said all this stuff happened, and he was, like what Dennis Montgomery was involved in, and all these other things, and then also they were crapping on the sheriff's office in Maricopa County. They try to tie it into their own narrative, and I go, all right, come on, let's really find out what's up here. And I go back and I'm piecing together pieces by piece of what the case is, and it seems like this guy essentially he's I don't know if he's a hoaxer, an eccentric. He's a fraudster, and he basically goaded the Defense Department into basically giving his company money to develop software for him, and then he didn't really do it. And then his excuse for saying he didn't do it was essentially that the CIA or FBI confiscated it. And they did confiscate some stuff. And then when they checked the stuff, it's basically NSA, CIA, even IRS has looked into this guy. They're just like, there's nothing here. This guy's completely full of shit. Saying he dropped 600 million pages of documents or something like that. That's never materialized. He hasn't provided copies of the program. He hasn't provided copies of the documents he's talking about. This guy keeps basically moving the goalpost on his story over and over again. He's been a real pain in the ass of the FBI and whatnot. And the thing is that he came out as a whistleblower back when that was all, because essentially Snowden came out, and remember the Shadowgate stuff and the subcontractors and all that, right? He came out, and this is obviously before the Shadowgate documentary came, but during, Edward Snowden and all these other people basically talking about the overintelligence gathering and the supercomputers and the processing and the AI and all that stuff. And now he claimed for himself that he had developed the program Hammer, right? Or I should say the supercomputer Hammer to then run the different types of programs to do these things. That has never been verified. In fact, when I find people talking about it, I double track the sources, and it's usually somebody he told himself or a statement his lawyer released, and then you find out that the statement the lawyer released, they've lost the case anyway, so it doesn't line back up. The Hammer thing wasn't true. It doesn't mean that there wasn't electronic vote tampering. It doesn't mean that a system similar to Hammer doesn't exist. I mean, we know based on essentially the whistleblowers within the intelligence community that yes, there is massive data gathering and their use of AI. And in fact, if you watch the Shadowgate documentary by Millie Weaver, the one guy actually shows basically an example of how that he has a working example of the software, and he's got it on his bicycle actually. So, you know, or I should say, it's not even, so I guess the software hardware setup. He's actually utilizing, like, he can actually demonstrate what's going on. And most of it, again, is data gathering, which we know data gathering is a lot easier than data manipulation. Dennis Montgomery has not provided examples of any of that, period. Also, for somebody who designed a supercomputer and super software, he hasn't designed anything like that in the past, ever. There's no record. He doesn't have any patents. He doesn't have any other programs that work. It seems like the guy was basically just a bullshit artist. And he basically conned the government out of a lot of money. And then he declared himself as a whistleblower to cover his ass. And he just kept riding that wave with just one lie after another. It sucks. But I'm glad we know now. And I think this is the reason why Sidney Powell has been booted essentially from the Trump legal team. Because she talked about the Hammer and Scorecard stuff. Because she probably got the same information that the rest of us were getting, where General McInerney was coming out and all these other people who were reliable talking about this Hammer and Scorecard thing. And it's not true. It had been debunked years ago, and we didn't realize that. So when we went to go search for it, let's see. Let me find a Twitter post about Hammer and Scorecard conspiracy theory. It could be labeled disinformation and or deleted. So what happened was when we tried to talk about this and have a discussion about whatever this Hammer thing is, the stuff got censored. That made us look at it really sideways. When we went to go search for it in the search engines, where was this article? Where was this Daily Beast article? Right? Like, do you think that this would be the response to somebody asking a question about it? Because this is not a great article, but at least it is an article. Couldn't find it. I couldn't find this in the search engine until because I had searched for this stuff before, and I couldn't find it until today. I mean, maybe I didn't search yesterday, granted, but I when I returned back to this, just wondering like, okay, I got to get more information on what's going on here. It's now we can find it. Now we can find it, right? So this all could have been cleared up, and we wouldn't have been chasing this white rabbit or wherever the hell it is. We wouldn't have been chasing this for, what day is it? 22nd, so the 3rd, so 19 days of essentially trying to figure. I mean, I guess it was less than that because they didn't talk about it until afterwards. But how many weeks did we waste our time and energy trying to piece together what this Hammer and Scorecard thing is? And it's not because we weren't trying. It's because these stuff where they talked about it years ago, suppressed. He's talking about the Hammer hoax, right? Suddenly, that's not showing up in the. This guy's name is Kevin Shipp. He's an ex-CIA operative, legit guy. He's a legitimate whistleblower. He's talked about this over a year ago. This is November 6, 2019, when this video came out, and he's done a bunch of other videos on this because he asked questions about it when it was first brought up. And he's actually done a pretty good job piecing together essentially why it's horseshit. And it's not just him. It's there's many other sources. Even Fox News, like Carl Cameron, he dealt with that. He actually tried to interview Dennis Montgomery, and Dennis Montgomery was not forthright with him. And they pulled the story. They were like, yeah, he's making these claims, and it's all outlandish, and he's not. He's reneging on basically providing evidence, and we can't run with this. So that's the but we can't find this. We couldn't find this 2 weeks ago, which would have cleared things up much quicker. That, in my opinion, is the real scandal. That's why this whole censoring misinformation and hoaxes is stupid, because they throw the good information in with the bad information, and then what happens? How do we talk about it? All right? If there's no discussion on it, we can't have. Somebody should have been able to find this video 2 weeks ago. So when I looked for it 2 weeks ago, the only thing I could find on it was basically McInerney's interviews about it, and then the backtracking from him to figure out what's going on with this. Steve Bannon's not talking about this anymore. The president never mentioned it. Powell took the bait. Sucks. Pretty evil of them to do that. And, this is not, it's our responsibility to try to figure out what the truth is. And you shouldn't act on things you're not certain of. I do agree that. But at the same time, the media and particularly the big tech, they did not make it easy for us to find what the truth is. There's people still today who are going to buy into this Hammer and Scorecard thing and not realize that basically this Dennis Montgomery guy is full of shit. And that basically it's a misinformation op. And I'm going to say something that's not necessarily super popular. I feel the same way about Q now that I've chased that train. I didn't know much about Q, and I started looking at it. I went in with an open mind. And it never quite sat right with me, but I said, okay, all right, let me just hear what it has to say. And then I started going back, and I started looking back at the predictions and things they're saying, and it's classic disinformation. About 80% of it's true, and then 20% of it is the lie. And then what that does is that basically frames your thinking. You end up chasing whatever this narrative is, because you're just waiting and anticipating. And what does Q say? Oh yeah, trust the plan. Well, if you trust the plan, then what you're doing is you're just sitting there and being idle. And that's our enemies. That's exactly what they want us to do, is to either be chasing something that is crap, like this hammer thing, or they want us to be sitting there doing nothing, saying, oh, it's all going to work out in the end. Right? I mean, how many people who trust the plan decided they were not going to donate, money to Trump's legal defense because they were trusting the plan, because they thought he had some sort of ace up his sleeve involving the shit Q was talking about? Think about that. And now, here's the thing. There's about 2 million people who follow Q. So I don't blame Trump for not, pissing them off and being like, yeah, I think Q's crap. I get it. That's, you don't, those people are basically have hope invested in what Q's saying. And to burst their bubble right before an election is probably not a great idea in terms of, 2 million voters, right? And also then Q just says, oh, he had to denounce me because XXX, whatever the reason is. It's will that shake some people loose? Yes. Will that also piss some people? I mean, what if he had done that, then Q right before the election could have said, oh my God, Trump's compromised or some shit. That would have thrown things completely into chaos, right? But Trump didn't take the bait. He just said, I don't know what it is. These people love America. It's true. The people who follow Q generally do like America. They want to believe in hope for the future. That doesn't mean Q's legit. And that's tough. I mean, this does suck that it's like these avenues of hope we have, what feels like these Hail Marys that are being thrown, are ending up just being basically garbage. And the people doing that to us know that, and they laugh. They're like, haha, I got you hoping. It's the, and you're going to be hoping for something that's not coming. And it's like a pyramid scheme. Somebody's down on their luck, and they're, getting out of college or getting out of high school, and they're having absolute worst financial time, and they're looking to turn their life around, and then somebody comes up like, oh, here's a job for this, and this is what you're going to do, and then somebody believes it because there's no reason not to believe it, because people don't lie to you. And then all of a sudden they're sucked into a pyramid scheme, and they owe money, or just it's just they sold some knives to some people, and then they didn't weren't able to make a career out of it, and the whole the only people who made money at the end of the day was essentially the company that did it. And that's not the only type of people, situations where essentially predatory on people who are in desperate need of hope. That's a particular type of evil. And I'm definitely one of those people who, at the very least, used to be susceptible to that, because I just had this in my head, why would people lie to you if they're telling you all this stuff and it's true, right? And you want to believe it, and you take risks, and then it just doesn't always pan out. And when you find out that somebody who you trusted was lying to you, it's devastating, and it's not fair, because if you have really close friends who don't lie to you, it kind of gives you a false sense of security. And you may think somebody's a close friend who you've been talking to for a year and a half, and then they end up not being the person they're pretending to be, and you don't know this, and it's tough. That can completely rock your worldview, and it's enough to send you into pretty deep depression too. I'm speaking from experience here, but it's not to. I should say this is not to crush your hope. What this is to do is to quantify it. Realize that the innate goodness in you that is desiring for hope is a signal to predators. I'm not saying don't be hopeful. I'm not saying give up the ship. I'm not saying be paranoid, because we know where those things lead. But this is the kind of shit that this is the kind of weapon they're going to use against you. They're going to basically have you chase false hope, and it's when they censor a lie and they censor the truth, and then they hold those at the same value. Guess how many people are going to believe the truth and the lie? They're going to both believe it together, and it can do things like break your entire case, which is why Powell's no longer on the legal team. She took the bait. Is she right about the Smartmatic stuff? I don't know. It could be a double blind thing. Is Dominion crooked? Absolutely. Look at the people involved. Absolutely, Dominion's crooked. Does it mean Brian Kemp was taking money? It might not. Who the hell knows? Who the hell knows with this electronic stuff? Whether how much of it is electronic, how much of it is just people dicking with it on site, how much of it is the weighted election options within the Dominion system itself, how much of it is just feeding the same batch of ballots through multiple times just to screw with the numbers. How much of it is just them just throwing Trump votes in the trash and then replacing it with an equal number of Biden votes. Montgomery County, PA had some stuff. There was like 80,000 something Trump votes disappeared, while 136,000 Biden votes materialized at like 6:15 a.m. And that's according to like the Edison count, right? Which is what's wild is like the Edison's controlling, like they're monitoring whatever the electronic output is of the totals, and votes should never be going down, but they did. Do we know why that happened? Was that human input? Was that a computer program? Now I'm not so sure. We know it's not supposed to happen, and the thing is that again, the sinisterness of the strategy is that do a bunch of bullshit, do a bunch of different bullshit, all screwing with it, and then don't let the people observing it see it, or let them see you from 100 feet away, or it's happening in one room, and then keep the watchers in the other room. And then when they ask, "Oh, did you allow poll watchers?" Yes, we did. Did you allow count watchers? Yes, we did. And then the count watchers say, "No, you didn't let us close." Well, we did let you. We did let you over a certain amount. And then you don't know what the truth is, right? Is it a half truth? Is it a lie? It's a mess. Every single thread of this is potentially another landmine, because all they got to do is for you to put in your case something that is not true. And not that you can't prove it, because you can prove it until your proof ends up being bullshit. Powell's gathering testimony, right? Testimony of people saying this. Well, you want to bet one of the people who's testifying is Dennis Montgomery? Not too hard to get him to talk about it, right? And you want to bet the other people testifying about it are, people who maybe are invested in the Trump case failing? If you're Dominion or whoever the hell's responsible for the electronic screws, fuckery, for lack of a better word, why would you not want people to start talking about the Hammer, like blow the whistle on the Hammer stuff and make it look as spooky as possible and have people testify? Because it's not true. You don't need to disarm your enemy if the weapons they have end up being faulty, and they don't know it. And the whole thing, the kitchen sink's being shot at us, and it's unfortunate, but We got to realize that this is actually, we're little people. We're going to be deceived. And they're actively trying to deceive us. And they're actively trying to deceive us in many, many, many different ways. So, yeah, Shadowgate, that's great. What do you think this Hammer thing does to Shadowgate? You think that adds credibility to Shadowgate? Of course not. Because it's a similar thing, but it's a lie. So, this was interesting. I hope that the legal team has not taken as much bait. It seems like they compartmentalized it. They basically said, okay, one of our attorneys is going to chase this one thing that's super dangerous. And when she ended up essentially hitting a dead end or essentially falling into a trap, they were able to cut her loose. That's why Giuliani is focusing on basically the witness testimony and the basically the accounting fraud stuff. That's what he primarily talks about, because there's far less of a chance of that being able to screw that up and fabricate that. Are some of those affidavits fake? Wouldn't surprise me. Would not surprise me. And the reason why I say that is because if you are the defense in this case and you want to cover up the fraud you committed, you have somebody testify about fraud that didn't occur. And then that you can now prove as a defense. And that throws into question the rest of it. These people are smart. They're not dumb. This is warfare to them. And what do we do about it? What's our counter move? I don't know. Joe Citizen, what is the counter move to deal with this? I don't know. I wish I knew. I wish I could tell you what we should be doing right now. But I don't really know. I don't know what we should be doing in these next 2 weeks. Listen to what our leaders are asking us to do. And by that, I mean, if you want to keep helping Sidney Powell because you think there's stuff to this electronic stuff and that she's not going to be, the Venezuela angle is actually something that's going to pan out, okay, go for it. But keep in the back of your head, you might not get satisfaction at the end of that road because it might be bullshit. And it's not your fault that it's bullshit. People, they'll lie to you and they'll make you think something's real that's not because they want to discredit and obfuscate the actual truth. President Trump, what's he asking citizens to do? He says, show up to rallies, protest. Good, go do that. That makes sense. What do I do in Montgomery County? I don't know. We have no leadership, and I got nothing to. The Montgomery County Republican Party's a joke. So maybe there's nothing I can do here. I don't know. So we'll see. I mean, I hope. My hope is that the equal protection clause, essentially the reason why, or I should say I guess it's like equal treatment of the votes and the ballots. We know that didn't happen for a fact. There's not really any question about that because it's even written in, I would say, unconstitutional law that there's not equal treatment. So we don't know. So we know that's the case. And what I'm hoping is that the Supreme Court says, yeah, you guys violated that, so it has to get kicked to the state electors. And then the electors had the political clout to say, look, there's so much mail-in ballot fraud that we're not going to be voting for Biden. We're going to vote for Trump. Maybe that'll be the case. What's going on in Nevada? It's pretty crazy, right? Of all the places, Nevada's working out. And of all the places not to have certified, it was the Arizona governor who actually put his foot down saying this is crap. It's weird. It's very weird. So, yeah, the constitutional, we live and die by the Constitution, and that's going to be the only thing that can truly, I think, save us in sense of even if we prove the electronic voting fraud, if they don't essentially enforce the constitutional problems that this election has caused, what's the point? We still are in deep trouble. So stick it out. Don't take the bait. Think for yourself. People are going to be days behind on this. People are going to be hours behind. Sometimes people are going to be ahead of you. I know there's people ahead of me. I know there's people behind me. It's tough. It's a ripple effect. Tucker Carlson, hey, maybe he was correct on some of this stuff. Maybe he was. Maybe he actually had looked up the Hammer stuff and he realized it was bullshit and he basically wasn't taking Sidney Powell seriously, but Sidney Powell was talking about something else. Fine. I don't think they should have had their feud in public. I think Tucker was wrong to essentially say what he said the first night, but the second night, what he said, that was reasonable. You know? And again, guys, don't be throwing our best mouthpieces under the bus. This is why this misinformation is out there. It is to get us to turn on each other and fight for who's doing the right thing and all this. Calm down. It doesn't matter whether you bought the hoax or didn't buy the hoax or believe this or like Tucker or don't. We all have the same enemy. That's where the focus is. We know we're being lied to. we know the election is crap. And we know that the Democrats will do anything, and we mean anything, to keep power. But that doesn't mean they did anything under the sun. You know, doesn't mean they did everything that happened. Just keep that in mind. It's obfuscation. It's tough. And we don't want to be like the Democrats who like Democratic voters who just believe in the things like the Russia hoax and still believe it because they just never followed up. Right? We don't want to be like them because it's the fight breaks out and they want to die on the hill of basically the Russia hoax. Well, we at least feel good. And then we don't want to be dying the hill on the Hammer hoax in the same way, because then what they get to say is hey, look, well, yeah, okay, the Russia stuff isn't real, and a lot of that people believe that, but then Republicans believe the Hammer thing. And it's equivalence, right? Could have both been caused by the same party, They could have been feeding both. But ignore that. Just keep your head screwed on straight. And I do recommend checking out Kevin Shipp. Interesting guy, ex-CIA. And, again, don't take my word for it. Just, I would recommend going to the Daily Beast, tracking this article down, and then when your blood pressure drops, because they're total dicks in this, just start kind of backtracking and looking up some of the different things. And actually, I believe Kevin's channel has a pretty good breakdown of, whatever. You guys can find it. So, that's that, and here's to a better week, let's hope, right? Maybe. To the Constitution. That's what we got, right? Not that the Democrats like sticking to that anyway, so we'll find out.